my friends. Welcome back to the ThePCelitist. My name is Corey Lanack,
I am Sean Freeart,
also known as Woodsy and Shepherd. In the days of yore, before we had the great reveal that we were actually people. But today we're talking about something that is serious to me. It's something that occupied a lot of my brain power for the better part of a week, because it was quite the conundrum. So I'm going to rely on our very intelligent listener base in order to help me work through what I should do in regards to this issue. Are you ready? Are you ready for this story? I'm about to start some storytelling.
Yes, do the storytelling, but let's emphasize what the point of this particular discussion here is. So
yes.
Go ahead.
If there's if there's ever an issue on this channel that could get into the weeds, this is one that could go way in there. So we got to be careful.
Go ahead.
My fiance actually told me about this story. She heard about it on the radio, and I looked it up, found a story on it at polygon.com, which we'll link in the description below. But basically, the headline is Turtle Rock community manager let go after Donald Sterling Twitter remarks. Okay. This video will not be about whether what he said was racist, how racist it was.
This discussion is in no way about the Donald Sterling part of this story.
Right, exactly.
So let's just move past that.
Right. What this is a story about me as a person, and you can use this as an analogy for something that might happen to you later. But basically, I want to find the quote they use in Polygon.
I can give it to you.
Okay, so to set it up real quick,
Sure.
Josh Olin, he's a community manager for Turtle Rock. They're working on this game called Evolve, which I've actually interested in because they are in large part a team that worked on Left 4 Dead, which we both love. And I was interested in this game. Basically what he said, why don't you read, based on the Donald Sterling thing, he was commenting on his own personal Twitter.
Yes. What he said was...
Go for it.
He said a lot, but this was kind of the first piece. Quote, "Here's an unpopular opinion. Donald Sterling has the right as an American to be an old bigot in the security of his own home. He's a victim." End quote.
Right. Okay. So here's the issue for me as a potential consumer of this product.
Well, and just kind of to follow up, he was forced out of Turtle Rock subsequently.
For saying that.
Right, and they, of course, released a statement that you're hearing from almost every company. His comments are not in line with our values. We are all about diversity and fairness. So it's the typical type of elements of the story you would expect.
Right. They release they could almost be applied to any issue. Mm-hmm. They just send it out after firing this guy. Now, I immediately thought when I heard this is that I agreed completely with his Twitter comment. And the fact that he got fired made me think, well, I'm not going to buy the game now, because basically what I'm seeing is a company that can't stand to have someone work in their building that thinks the same way I would think. That's too bothersome. Like, we can't have someone who thinks like you working here. That's too much. You're fired. So my immediate reaction was, I don't buy your product if that's, because you wouldn't want me working there either, right? Now, before anyone starts going into the comments about, whether what he said was right or wrong, this isn't really about what he said. It's whether, if a company fires somebody over something that you agree with, whether it be a social issue or what have you, and they say, well, we don't want your kind here, and they get rid of them, okay, do you think the same way? Do you say, okay, I'm not going to buy from this company because whatever the position is, they don't agree with it, so I don't want to support that company, because I'm very much a believer in voting with your dollars, right? Mm. Okay, here's where the twist comes in. Here's where the problem, because I'm pretty much set, my mind is set at this point, but then Josh Olin speaks again, right? Do you have that quote as well?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
He speaks again.
Just to kind of clarify, he later went, and you obviously, we hope you're reading the article so you get the full story here. He later went on, after he did some back and forth with some of his Twitter followers, he went on to clarify, saying why he thought Sterling was a victim because, quote, illegal wiretapping resulting in a massive life-altering breach in privacy, end quote. So he said he explicitly was not defending Sterling's remarks or actions. So that's why his clarification. But he later on went to say, and this is what caused you some particular contortion in your mind, was da 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 da. That said, everyone should totally still buy Evolve. The guys and gals making that game know their shit and are making it good. End quote.
Right.
Because he said that, that caused a bit of an issue for you, didn't it?
Yes, because basically,
and it makes sense that he would say that, because he's not mad at the people he worked with to make, or the people he worked with who made the game. He's mad at upper management of Turtle Rock.
Right, and it actually
so it's natural to think that he wouldn't want to blame all of them.
Right, and it speaks to his character too that he said that, because he had no reason to, really, other than he's got friends who are making the game. But I mean, I'm sure he doesn't really care that much whether the bigwigs who decided to fire him make money. But I could see easily another type of person just saying, screw that company, I'm not going to say anything to help them at this point. Mm-hmm. So, kudos to him for actually, being there with his, his buddies and saying, look, still buy the game. They're good at what they do, even though I got the short end of the stick. I could get behind that. So because of that, now I don't know what to do, because on the one hand, I want to, in solidarity to the same beliefs that he has, I would say I'm not going to support that company. But he's got the biggest axe to grind with the company than anybody does, I would think, because he's the guy who just lost his job. So who am I to say, well, I mean, it's a game I'm interested in. I'm not sure. Do I boycott the game? Or do I just get this game and then boycott anything else Turtle Rock does or 2K does? Like, what, that's where I'm sitting. Like, yeah. 2K games doesn't really actually make a lot of games that I'm interested in, so it's not really like a big sacrifice for me. Mm-hmm. I don't even know what games they make. I can't even name off a few. But
they make a lot of sports games, and you're not huge on sports games.
Yeah, so it wouldn't really affect me. So it would be this one title.
Right.
So
yeah.
Go ahead. Cool.
Well, just initially, and again, this is the point of this discussion is not about whether or not we agree with what he said. So I'm not even going to offer what I think about what he said. The point is the issue you're dealing with right now. Here's my response to your question. For generally speaking, the way I feel about boycotts, great, grand, and wonderful if you want to have one. They are meaningless unless the company you are boycotting is aware that they lost your business because of it. If they project Evolve to have 500,000 copies sold and it only sells 400,000, they are not able to attribute that to bad marketing, just inflated expectations, or gamer community reaction to this. For me, if you're going to make the decision to boycott, it is absolutely worthless unless you reach out to that company and say, and be respectful about it, just so you know, I was considering buying this game and I was excited about it, but in light of this situation, I've decided not to buy it. Here is why. And you just, like I said, be very civil, but let them know. Because otherwise, if you want to send a message, they're not going to get it. Right. So I don't have a particular suggestion in terms of which way you should go, because I hadn't been following Evolve, so I feel pretty agnostic on the decision of whether or not to buy it based on this. But my suggestion to you would be, if ultimately you decide not to buy it, shoot him an email and just be very outgoing with why you felt that you can't support them anymore. And I think honestly, if you do decide to support them, write an email anyway and let them know I was on the fence about this, and really what brought me back is because of what he said. So that's my 2 cents on the question of boycotting in this situation or in any other. Boycotting's meaningless unless you actually send the message you're trying to send. And to me, it has to be done with words and withholding dollars.
I definitely had planned, I was thinking about what I would write to the company. But I hadn't worked through what I really wanted to do yet. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But you're right. Yeah, you have to... They can't account for your silence. They don't know why you didn't buy the game unless you tell them, hey. And then if everyone who agrees with him all wrote the letter, they would say, well, it's sold this much, but we would have this many more sales if we didn't do what we did. So
Yeah,
that
and
they,
that's just for this particular game. But if everyone wrote and said, "I won't buy this game and I won't be buying any others," I mean, it's not your responsibility to give them this data. But if what you are assuming is that these larger game developers and publishers, all they care about is money, if that's all they understand, in your opinion, then speak their language at least.
right,
Let them know that, because it's honestly, it's mostly meaningless to them if you've never purchased any of their games and you say, "Oh, and I never will." Well, they lost a maybe someday customer. But if it's I've been buying 2K Sports for the last 10 years, and I won't anymore, that means a little bit more. And of
right.
course, you could be lying, but that's why I think it's important to be civil, because they can easily dismiss you, as they well should, if you write and you're just an idiot.
Right, yeah. Well, what about like just from a personal like standpoint? Like I feel better not buying, not supporting that company.
Hmm.
You know, just whether or not you're going to spur, change in the company or them rehiring the guy because of, outrage. But just like I don't feel good putting money towards that.
Hmm.
Like I mean,
So
that could be
yeah,
considered as well.
that is a consideration, and there is something to be said for that. If your intent is to send a message, then send a message. But if your intent is just to have that part of your conscience remain intact, then fine. Then you've fulfilled the obligations in that
So
respect.
I guess my answer, even though other people might have differing opinions, it's basically on my attention. If I want to be guilt free on the issue, I think he gives me license by what he says. If I still wanted to buy it, but I was like, but they fired that guy who thinks he specifically told me, a person thinking like me,
Mhm.
look, even with this, go buy it. So it gives me some sort of latitude to say, okay, well, um, I think that I can still feel good about making this purchase because I'm supporting a group of people he likes.
Yeah,
Even
because
though,
yeah,
yeah,
ultimately your choices are, refuse to support the people who you don't like, meaning upper management, but you're also choosing to not support the people who he is rooting for. So, I mean, your choices are to support none of them or all of them, and you have to decide whether or not it's important to you to support the ones who made the game, in addition to the people who are the bosses of those making the game.
right, right,
So, and I mean, another question would be if this is a unique situation where if this were a small development shop, that was like 6 people, and this sort of thing happened, he probably wouldn't have the opportunity to say, "Oh, still buy the game because those people know their stuff." It was just that one CEO asshole. I mean, it's
yeah.
more likely to happen from a larger, more corporate
Yeah,
setup.
because you don't know whose bad side you got on. Just
Hmm.
it came downstairs and said, "You're gone." There's enough people up there who didn't like it, so bye, kind of
Yeah.
situation. So yeah, but anyway, I'm curious to see what everyone out there in the YouTubes and the
All
think
over the interwebs. Yeah,
all
not
over.
just about this issue, but if you've had these sort of struggles yourself with, and it could be over something like this that is not necessarily, related to the game in any significant way, or it could just be because of, for example, Bethesda. I'm at the point where I'm ready to boycott Bethesda for the games they make. But my decision to do that is ultimately meaningless if the message I want to send them doesn't get sent.
So
So
your
if
email
you,
to Bethesda is like, if your games were better, I'd buy them. Just so you know.
just so you know, no, the title of it will be Rogue Warrior. Enough said. No, but we do want to hear about if you've had to struggle with this kind of decision, or maybe you don't have to struggle at all. You just decide, oh, never going to buy them again. Don't even
Right.
need to tell them. They
Yep.
can all go die.
Anyway, so leave your comments below. My name is Corey Linek.
My name is Sean Freer. This is the PC Elitist signing out.